Welcome to RevUP and Awaken, and I'm your host, Mimi. We are definitely living in interesting times these days. I mean, who could not believe what we're going through? Who could have known that the lives that we led up to this point that we thought would never change would yield so many more possibilities than we could have imagined? The foundation we came to know is no longer a viable one. We are learning that we can change things, change those deep-rooted structures that we accepted without questioning for so long. But like anything new, we find there is still a learning curve attached to it all. Understanding our place in the bigger picture, that universal energetic field that as energetic beings we all play a part in, helps to clarify our steps toward freedom that before we merely only dreamt of. What is our role in this new paradigm? What is it going to take to ensure our place in it? This will be a guide for navigating these new, unusual times that we are presently in. And with that, we have Blanca Beyar here today to give us a glimpse as to what living in this new earth is all about and what we each need to do in order to fulfill our personal missions at this time. Blanca is an author of 17 books, a spiritual teacher, shamanic healer, and guru. Blanca's books are great facilitators in expanding our spirituality. Hi, Blanca. Welcome to RevUp.
Good morning,
Hello.
Miriam, and thank you so much, as always, for offering me a platform to share. I'm very humbled and very excited to be with you and your audience this morning.
Well, I know you've gone through a lot of changes, and I know you have more and new information to bring to the audience. And, I always want to be able to make that happen, and get it out there so people can learn what's beyond our visual perspective. Since I've been perusing the internet more than usual in the past year with everything that's been going on, I find that a lot of people are looking for support and a better understanding as to what we are heading towards in our future. And the foundation of society has certainly been uprooted. Nothing seems to be the same, and many wish it would all go back to normal. I don't know about others, though, but to me, what was considered normal in society wouldn't be something I would wish to go back to, but then that's just me. We need to change all of that we knew and create better, and I certainly don't mean to continue to wear masks and experience fear of our mortality every time, we walk out of the house, or whether we will still have to figure out a way to pay our bills based on the economic situation that we're under. But what we create has to be better than what we are leaving behind. So this is like a show to sort of guide people into understanding how they can create a better structure in this new earth paradigm that we're in right now. So, and I wanted to get down to the, to the brass tacks, whatever they call it, as to what we can do, what people out there can do.
I love some of the statements that you made as you were sharing that introduction. Going back to the old, going back to normal. I humbly but boldly do not believe that that is part of the equation here. This is not something temporary, like a glitch, that then suddenly we're going to find ourselves back into the normalcy of the past. Actually, that's not what's intended at all. This is more so the completion of an old paradigm and the commencement of a new era. And we've heard that, if we go on the internet, like you said, the new earth, the new creation, the Aquarius age, like what are all those, right? Titles? It really is a new experience. And I think that that's the first step, believe it or not. The first fundamental step is to recognize that globally, universally, we have begun the inception of a new creation. Our emphasis should be placed on that versus looking at what is collapsing and what is completing itself, what's going through a process of completion. And of course, it's very difficult. It's easier said than done how do we do that? How do we navigate through a new beginning when there are so many facets of our life and the foundation of what we knew prior to all of these triggers, right? all of these life events. Uh, how do we know? How do we know that that's truth? Well, we can know in a number of ways. Of course, many of the sages, the teachers, the messengers of the past have prophesied this time, right? For eons through their messages that there will come a time when we will almost experience what may seem as an Armageddon, so to speak. Yes,
Yes.
right?
Right.
And we don't want to place too much energy on that word, or to focus on the fear facet of that word. Really, the Armageddon is the completion, the collapsing. But I like the word completion of a timeline, of an era. And why it's an Armageddon is because there are so many who are resisting that ending. And so I love when you said going back to normalcy, because it's going to be very difficult. It can be I humbly say it can be very difficult if we're still holding the foundation that we're going to go back to some kind of normalcy.
Right. Right.
What we need to do instead is to create and start to build a new foundation in the new earth creation. Yes?
Right.
Right?
And I want to say that, and I know that from your teachings, one of the things that we need to do is to eradicate a lot of the traumas and other areas in our lives from the past that have prevented us from moving ahead, because we can't bring that with us to this new paradigm because the vibrational levels are going to be higher. So what can you say about that, and helping us to rid ourselves of those traumas, the cutting of the cords, severing contracts, moving away from those experiences that we had in the past that really prevented us from moving ahead?
Absolutely. And of course, a beautiful question. Our traumas, our life experiences were incredible opportunities for us to grow and expand, and to to eventually get to that place of unconditional love. And once again, when we hear this at the many levels of the countless of traumas that we have collectively experienced, it's not always easy to hear that. Like I hear it all the time with people that I work with. Oh, you don't know what I've been through. I've been through so much trauma, through so much pain, through so much betrayal, all of this emotional pain. Well, it wasn't intended to just be emotional pain. It was intended to be an escalator, if you may, that would help us rise, right? Ascend from that place of pain, of victimization, of betrayal, of all of those low vibrational feelings. And as we reconcile, as we see that each one of those traumas were really intended to be a gift to grow, we begin to ascend, up that elevator, up that escalator to this new creation. And I love it that you mentioned that this new creation doesn't have room for debris. We cannot carry over the emotional baggage. And the reason for that is very simple. What would be the sense of having a higher vibrational foundation if we're going to bring the same crap, emotional debris that we had in the old one? It would just become, a higher version of the old debris.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, no, it's not possible. And so one of the greatest callings right now is for those who may identify still with emotional blockages, trauma, to truly have the courage and the boldness to finally reconcile and to let go of those trauma experiences. And also mentioned cord cutting, which of course, we have done work with, you and I, right?
Right. Yeah.
And to recognize the importance of that, of cutting cords. So I like to take a moment, if we could,
Yeah,
to explain what that means on a deeper level,
absolutely.
through the many levels of emotional healing, it takes like an onion, many layers, right?
Yes, yes.
And so, right?
Yeah.
And so we can authentically have the complete intention to sit down. And of course, we know that part of the work is writing a pardon letter, being able to energetically share the experiences and then forgive it and forgive yourself. But sometimes, and most of the time, actually, that's not enough, because even though we've rendered forgiveness, there's still attachments, energetic attachments. And what cord cutting does is that it recognizes on a high vibrational space that contract or those contracts have been completed. When we look at it from the highest place of divinity, it is a beautiful process or ritual practice to cut cords. If we recognize that we've done the forgiveness work and yet there's still that heaviness, that's still that pull to that experience or that trauma, it is possible that on an energetic level, we've created a cord, of attachment to that experience and to those emotions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
We can compare it to ancestral, you know, many shamans speak of ancestral lineage, and there are many groups, many people who believe that we're cursed, right? Because
Yes.
we carry ancestral debris. Debris. In shamanism, there are rituals when they do cord cutting, right? It is not that it's an external curse or course. So I want to make that clear. I don't believe in that. That there's curses beyond our external place. That we cannot have any control of. I don't give that any credence. What I do give credence to is that if we recognize that there is ancestral repetition of pain or emotional trauma, then yes, there may be an energetic cord, and that with awareness, we can very lovingly detach ourselves from those cords. We have to willingly and consciously cut those cords and do so knowing that we're completing a contract and a lineage that has been carried over through ancestral lines.
I have a question about ancestral lines and trauma. Believing in reincarnation as I do, we come in and out of different bodies and we have different families, or at the very least, each time we come in, many of those spiritual members of our spiritual family come into different roles. So I often wonder, how is it that we can have that type of an effect from ancestral lines if we are not always going to be traveling with one another from lifetime to lifetime? I don't know if I'm making myself clear. I'm trying to figure out a way to say.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, we have to look at it as a very big puzzle, a 5,000 piece puzzle, right? And when you're working on a puzzle, you may start, some people may be gravitated to creating the frame, right? First. And then some people may be gravitated to complete the center or particular part of the puzzle that's very prevalent, that stands out like a flower or a house, right? And why I want to use that as an analogy is when a soul enters this realm, it has many contracts, many pieces of the puzzle that it came here to complete. And it's not going to necessarily need every soul family member to complete different aspects of that divine puzzle. You and I may decide to come back, say, for a dozen lifetimes, because we want to complete you and I agreed to come together to complete, say, the frame of your puzzle. But now the center parts may be you with other friends, with other teachers, with other partners. You follow? Yes?
Right.
And the reason for that is because on a soul matrix, the puzzle of a soul is exponentially expansive. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we may think that we have a little puzzle to complete, but we have taken countless of lifetimes to get to this timeline. And whether we have awareness of that or not is a different, that's a whole different subject. But the soul is ancient,
Mm-hmm.
and the accumulation of experiences that it will take for the soul to have the remembrance of this ancient state is many. You know, the experiences are not completing the soul. The experiences are helping the soul remember how ancient it is.
So in other words, when they speak of ancestors, it doesn't necessarily have to be that particular current line or lineage that you came from. It encompasses many different lifetimes and all the lineages from each and every one of them.
Exactly.
Okay.
If we were to go back to the origination of our soul inception, of course, there is an ancestral beginning,
Mm.
but really think about it. So, what is the very beginning?
Mm.
It is your divine consciousness of the universal force as one.
Right.
So, the very beginning is the void of which we are all part of, and we are the lineage of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's pretty deep, but
I
you
know.
follow what I'm saying,
Yeah,
right?
that's real deep, man. I
Right?
tell you.
Yes, you know. And then, of course, as the soul begins the evolution of the journeys, then yes, the ancestral Akashic records begin to accumulate. But really, the origination point is to the sacred divine self. So yeah, that's the deep side.
Yeah, that
you
is
know.
deep. I tell you. Since you met.
But
Oh, I'm sorry.
mhm.
Yeah, tell me what else that you wanted to say.
Well, what I was going to say was, since we're talking about cord cutting,
Yes.
and the importance of that, uh, we keep it, maybe not that deep at this moment, but to say, if we have a belief, I guess my message is, is that if we have a belief that we're cursed and that there is no way that we're ever going to release ourselves from the bondage of ancestral cords,
Mm.
then we need to think again. That's the whole reason why we have energetic and ancestral cords, is to heal those cords, not to carry them around, not to feel that we're forevermore burdened or cursed with those, experiences, but more so, are we going to be the ones who break the chain of ancestral,
Yes.
energetic carrying over? And the answer is impeccably yes, especially in this timeline.
Mm-hmm.
We are the ones who came to complete the process of that ancestral trauma foundation, and to begin the new creation in a beautiful way in this new earth.
Since you had brought up the Akashic records, so I wanted to, in case people don't understand what they are and what role they play, I wanted to talk a little about that as well.
Well, people are fascinated when they hear the word Akashic records,
Yeah.
and just very simply, the Akashic records are a library, if you may, an expansive library of all the experiences and all the lifetimes that we've had through that soul evolution. And so just think of an enormous database
Yeah.
that keeps records of every experience, and I mean every experience that we've had.
Mm-hmm.
And we would ask ourselves, why is there an Akashic record library? Well, first of all, that is a universal tool that is representative of this universal experience, period. However, the Akashic records also play a very vital part in us remembering, right? And retracing our roots back to who we were, to the origination point. And so when we tap into Akashic records, we are basically tapping into the pieces of the puzzle. So I want to keep referring back to the puzzle that
Right.
I love analogies because we can see it clearer, as we keep placing pieces of the puzzle, right? We start to look at it, and if we were working on a real puzzle, we would say like, oh, I'm beginning to see. It is beginning to take definition, and we can compare that then to pieces of the Akashic records. Every time that we have a trigger, every time that we have a piece that identifies with part of our Akashic records, it's a trigger that starts to now define itself and remind us of who we really are, who we really were, and bringing us closer and closer to the acknowledgement and declaration of that. And so it's basically bringing us back home to our divine truth. I think that the fascination with Akashic record and the caution all at once is that people may find it fascinating to, oh, I want to know about my Akashic records. Do you read Akashic records? Well, we may not always be ready to remember our past or our past lives, and that's why everything happens in divine order. And the greatest way that we can expedite the ability to be ready is through healing. Through healing. There is no shortcuts. We should not bypass healing to get to our Akashic records.
The Akashic records is basically an energetic library.
Yes, yes. And of course, we can have visions of it. We can actually energetically visit the Akashic Records library. I've heard of countless of experiences. I've had it myself numerous times where I'm walking through the halls of Upnenti. I've seen volumes of books that look very similar to encyclopedias, and I remember early on in my ambition to know thyself, that I would push myself to go to the Hall of Menti to see if I could discover what was in those books. But like I said, many times I visited there, and when I would open a book, it was blank. And the reason for that was because I was not ready. I was not ready to retain and receive that knowledge, that memory. I just wasn't ready. So is that to say that we should not work? Because, as I'm saying that, I could almost hear people saying, oh, so I shouldn't try. I think the message of this is that our primary focus should be on healing, right? What we're consciously aware of, and that the reward of healing is that those Akashic records will flow effortlessly into your consciousness, and they will begin to become available as a consequence of your healing. And so it's not like we're going to miss, or that we don't have access to it. We make them available through our growth, and growth begins with healing. We cannot bypass the most vital part of the experience, which is to be able to heal and reconcile.
Now, in terms of getting, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who do readings for Akashic records for many people. Is there some way of knowing that these individuals are authentic? I'm assuming that you would feel some sort of a draw or a connection to something that they would say about your past life that perhaps would give you an indication that it's real. But just in case people are, interested in going for readings like that.
Right. And I love that question, because of course there is many beautiful Akashic record readers, out there. And I'm not in any way questioning, their mission calling to do Akashic records. But I want to compare it then to a seer, right? Seers see many things. I'm a seer.
Right.
Part of the ability to see is what assists me in helping the beloveds, right? And helping them to reconstruct part of their own divine puzzle. But I see many things that I do not share until it's divinely timely divine order. You know what I mean? Like, I see many things that I do not share until I'm guided to share it with that beloved. Because just because I could see doesn't mean that the individual is necessarily ready. So I want to compare that to an Akashic record reader. They may have access to many things, but they need to be discerning. And also, that's why we all need guides, because we need to be discerning and also receive the cue that this individual is ready to receive, or that we are seeing. They're not always ready. And we have the ability to see just to be able to help them navigate. So as we talk about the subject of this podcast, healers, light workers are here to help navigate. But we have to gently lead individuals to that place, not bombard them with everything that we know, that we see, you know.
Right.
It's a journey, it's a process. And to do so before they're ready could be traumatizing.
We hope you've enjoyed part 1 of the Guide to the New Earth with our interview with Blanca Beyar. Look out for part 2. RevUp would like to hear from you. Send us ideas on topics you would like to hear about, or perhaps you would like to be a guest on the show. Until next time, keep your vibrations high and your awareness open. And we'll see you soon on RevUp and Awaken.